one has to wonder, after Monday night, did you really want to watch another 2 hours of WWE programming this week? More than likely, the answer is no. I think after Monday night, I don't think any of us want to watch WWE ever again. I have to. You probably will, even though we all bitch and moan. We always come back for more. And I explained the reason for that in my Monday Night Raw review video. Could WWE wash the miserable taste from our mouths after Monday Night Raw? The answer is no. It still lingers. It's still there. It will be there next week when you watch Raw. I assure you. It'll be there for the rest of the year because Monday Night Raw, when it boils down to it, is a miserable program. It hasn't been good in ages. All because they might deliver a good show on a random week doesn't make it a good program overall. SmackDown could have been a 10 out of 10 show. It could have been an NXT TakeOver-like show. And it still wouldn't be able to wash the taste out of our mouth from what was left on Monday night. Now, I didn't watch SmackDown live last night. I didn't watch it at 8 o'clock. I was somewhere else enjoying myself away from WWE programming for the night. Did I regret it? Absolutely fucking not. Because when I have Miles Kennedy 10 feet away from me on stage, I much rather do that for 2.5 hours than watch WWE. But I came home and I watched SmackDown on DVR. I watched it on replay at like 12 o'clock. And I watched it fast forward through all the commercials. It's much more enjoyable without the commercials. Way too many commercials, as we all know. But I got a sense from what I watched that it was a decent show last night. Was it a good show? No. No, it wasn't a good show. It was a decent show. But SmackDown has been putting on decent shows for the last 2 or 3 weeks now. They've been decent shows. They've been shows that at least flow nicely. It's not 3 hours of garbage. There are characters in place on SmackDown Live that we much rather see compared to Monday Night Raw, and that is a big issue right now. That is a major, major, major positive for SmackDown Live. That is the biggest thing going for them for the rest of this year. They have people in place that we want to genuinely see more so than anyone on Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw and their roster is garbage. There is nobody on that show. They don't have a roster deep enough to fill 3 hours of entertaining program. You have Drew McIntyre, you have Seth Rollins, you have Braun Strowman, and you have Elias. Those are the only 4 guys on that show that I give a fuck about. But those 4 guys are not going to fill 3 hours of program. Meanwhile, on SmackDown Live, you have the 2-hour format, and you have AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, Daniel Bryan, Samoa Joe, Andrade Cien Almas, Jeff Hardy. Which show would you rather watch? Not saying SmackDown Live is leaps and bounds better than Monday Night Raw because the creative writing in this company is fucking miserable. But when it comes to a roster and people that you want to see, you much rather watch SmackDown than Monday Night Raw. And I'm thinking about that last night. I'm like, wow. There are guys on this show that make it much more enjoyable just based on that aspect. I don't know if it was the fact that I watched it on replay that I enjoyed it a little bit more than usual, but in the end, when the show was over, I was like, damn, I really didn't want it to end last night. That's due in part to the fact that we actually got a great main event on SmackDown Live. And I want to start off the review by talking about the main event and where we go into next week. WWE's been on this thing all year. I even poked fun at it on House of Glory commentary when I did my commentary for their event Fair Warning in Queens on Friday, because there was a legitimate first time ever moment in the ring during one of the matches, and I mentioned this year being the year of first time evers. But legitimately, this was a first time ever that I was excited about. And the main event featured Jeff Hardy and Daniel Bryan. And the winner of this match would go on to next week and be in a qualifier against Samoa Joe to be placed in the Money in the Bank men's ladder match. Now, this was originally supposed to be Big Cass versus Samoa Joe. Big Cass apparently is legitimately injured. That right there makes everything else surrounding it unpredictable, which I don't mind. I don't mind. Normally, I would have been, I don't want to see Bryan versus Joe already with no build. But in this case, I'm not going to complain about it all too much. Now, Big Cass apparently is legitimately hurt again. He was noticeably limping backstage, according to reports, according to PW Insider. It's possible Cass is trying to work the other talents backstage, but it looks like he could be dealing with nagging knee injuries following his surgery. Cass spent the European tour selling last week's beatdown from Daniel Bryan. WWE posted an article and video on how he needed to be helped to the back on Sunday after a live event in Munich, the final Blue Brand show of the tour. This is according to PW Insider, reported by Wrestling Inc. Cass was pulled from the Money in the Bank qualifier last night with Samoa Joe due to what appeared to be a storyline injury. When WWE announced Bryan versus Jeff Hardy in a second chance match on SmackDown Live, everybody got excited. And I was one of those people that got excited because legitimately, Jeff and Bryan are two of my favorites. And the winner would go on to face Joe next week in a Money in the Bank qualifying match. It got my mind racing of what could be. What is WWE going to do here? I wouldn't mind if we got Bryan losing again and continuing that upward climb towards the top again in that typical Daniel Bryan babyface storyline. I wouldn't have mind if Jeff beat Bryan. I would have much rather Jeff beat Bryan because I didn't want to see Bryan and Joe yet. I would have saved that for something a little bit more important when both men were at least higher up the card and at least one of them being a world champion. That would have enhanced whatever we were going to see with Bryan and Joe, instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it and getting that first time ever again in the headline. It also got me wondering if Bryan is going to fight Joe next week. This is another thing that got me wondering. If Bryan is going to fight Joe next week, is WWE really? And I thought about this, but I didn't really put much thought into it. That SmackDown after WrestleMania, we got we got Bryan versus Styles. Is WWE getting these Daniel Bryan dream matches out of the way and on TV because they won't sign Daniel Bryan to another long-term deal? Does Bryan even want to sign a long-term deal with the WWE? So it got me wondering, is WWE giving us these first-time ever dream matches with Daniel Bryan because he might not be coming back? I don't know, man. It's something to really, really ponder. But the main event last night was very good. Was very good. I felt like we were shortchanged in the main event. They went about 10 to 12 minutes. I wanted to see them go another 10. I could have watched them for a whole half an hour ago. And I felt like what we got was a tease for something more that these guys could definitely do together. Great main event nonetheless. Daniel Bryan ends up tapping out Jeff Hardy clean. No interference whatsoever. I always appreciate that. It also got me wondering, when you're watching two guys like Daniel Bryan and Jeff Hardy in the main event, how great it is to watch two baby faces go at it. The atmosphere is so great. Jeff Hardy is one of the most popular superstars in the entire company. You guys know what Daniel Bryan is to everybody. The atmosphere with those two types of guys made it a great main event. And I don't know why WWE is afraid at times to put two baby faces like that in the ring. It always results in a great atmosphere. And I hope that they continue to do that from time to time. Never be afraid to put two guys like Bryan and Jeff Hardy in the ring together because they're two baby faces. I loved the atmosphere on SmackDown Live in that main event last night. So Jeff Hardy tapped out to Daniel Bryan, and we have Bryan versus Joe next week. Where do we go from here? This is where things get a little bit more unpredictable. I'm going to start with Jeff Hardy first. Jeff Hardy right now has no competition for the United States Championship. The last thing that I read via rumors and news reports is that Jeff will defend the United States Championship at Money in the Bank. That's according to the Twitter handle WrestleVotes. I don't know who this person is. Apparently they know inside sources. The last thing that they heard was that Jeff Hardy was going to defend the United States Championship at Money in the Bank. But against who? Nobody knows. Daniel Bryan is getting a second chance at Money in the Bank, and he's going up against Samoa Joe. How do you determine a winner for this match? Do you go with Joe? Do you go with Joe and put him in Money in the Bank, making that match that much more unpredictable? Because you already got a few guys in there that legitimately could win it all. It would be Joe, Miz, and Braun Strowman as odds-on favorites in that match. Or do you put Daniel Bryan in Money in the Bank and you have an interaction between he and the Miz? This is where I'm going with this. If I'm booking next week's SmackDown Live, I'm having Bryan lose clean to Samoa Joe, and I'm having Joe apply the Coquina Clutch. I'm going to have Bryan not tap out. I'm going to have Joe choke him out. And Bryan's going to fade away. He's going to pass out. Joe's going to win clean. Because Big Cass, if he is injured, should play no factor in what happens with Joe and Bryan. I'm going to have Joe win clean. I'm going to have Bryan pass out. And Joe's going to go to Money in the Bank. Why? Because of two reasons. One, if I'm booking this thing, am keeping Bryan and The Miz away from one another. I want nothing to do with Bryan and Miz on TV right now until there is a reason for them to cross paths. And the story that you're going to tell here is two different stories. You're going to tell one in The Miz, and you're going to chronicle his ascent, because right now, from what we're seeing with The Miz in 2018, this may be his best in-ring work to date, as of late, in the last month and a half. And you're going to continue to tell that story by him winning Money in the Bank, and that right there is going to be the entire foundation for what you're going to tell on SmackDown Live with their best story at the end of the year. Meanwhile, while Miz is Mr. Money in the Bank, you're going to tell the story of Daniel Bryan ascending and clawing his way back to the top. And when he finally sees that sunlight at the end of the tunnel, who's going to be there to fuck him over? It's going to be The Miz. There's no better story than that right there. Then you have a reason for them to meet face to face. The foundation's already laid. When Bryan has ascended so high up and has the WWE Championship within his grasp, The Miz is going to come over there like a rat, take it away, and that's where you're going to start The Miz and Daniel Bryan. I would not have them in the same match together to potentially ruin the mystique of what could be. Meanwhile, with Joe's going to be in Money in the Bank, and he is going to dominate. He's going to look good. He's going to come close. I'd love to see Joe interact with Strowman. I'd love to see Joe in the match just based on the unpredictability factor. But the reason why I would have Joe win over Bryan is because at this point, he needs to. Bryan doesn't need to win. Bryan can lose and still maintain that momentum and maintain that fan support. You don't want to risk that with Samoa Joe. Joe has already come out and stated and threatened not only Daniel Bryan, but AJ Styles as well. How much of those threats are going to mean anything if Samoa Joe is not dominating his way through the SmackDown Live roster? That's just the way I see it. You're not going to send out idle threats to AJ Styles and then you can't beat Daniel Bryan. And after him losing to Roman Reigns the way he did, I think Samoa Joe deserves a win. That's just the way I see it. But whatever we're getting on SmackDown Live in the main event scene, they got the right players. They're giving us the matches we want to see. It feels good. I'm not saying they're breaking any ground. I'm not saying it's great television. But the foundation and the possibility for them looks very promising right now at the top of the SmackDown Live main event card. I'm having Joe beat Bryan next week. I'm having Joe in Money in the Bank. What do you do with Daniel Bryan? Here's the other question. What do you do with Daniel Bryan at Money in the Bank? I would not mind another match against Jeff Hardy. At all. At all. You could come out and say, listen, Jeff could come out and say, I came close to beating Daniel Bryan. I want another shot at it. I'm so confident I could beat you, I'm going to put the United States Championship on the line. That's what I would do. And if you want, at that point, have Big Cass come in and interfere and stop Bryan. At least with Bryan, you're telling the right story. That he's getting fucked over by different circumstances along the way. Couldn't beat Rusev because of Aiden English. Couldn't beat Jeff Hardy because Big Cass interfered. Couldn't win the United States Championship because Big Cass interfered. That's what I would do. Meanwhile, they're trying to tell the same story on Monday Night Raw with Roman Reigns, and it's going absolutely fucking nowhere. Because nobody believes Roman Reigns is being held down or stopped. With Bryan, it's more believable. Because he's that type of character. When you got Roman Reigns main eventing WrestleMania every fucking year since 31, you can't really tell the story of management holding him down. Give me a fucking break. But I would not mind Bryan versus Hardy at Money in the Bank for the United States Championship. Very easy story to tell. I would rather that happen than WWE try and build up some uneventful and unimportant story with Jeff Hardy and give him a random opponent. I don't want to see him and Almas yet. There's no story there. They have nothing to do with one another. At least now we got step one out of the way. We got Jeff Hardy and Daniel Bryan, first time ever, out of the way. Why not put the title on the line? Why not own up to how confident you are that you could beat Daniel Bryan if you're Jeff Hardy? It's better than them having nothing to do. Because right now, if Bryan loses to Joe, going into Money in the Bank, Jeff has nothing to do and Bryan has nothing to do. Why not put them against one another, this time in a title match? See what happens, man. Right now, a lot of unpredictability on SmackDown Live when it comes to the main event. I'm loving it, and I hope it continues to get better. The other big thing that happened on SmackDown Live is Lana winning Money in the Bank, or winning the Money in the Bank qualifying match. I don't know what WWE is thinking here at all. I think this is absolutely fucking dreadful. Lana does not belong in Money in the Bank whatsoever. I don't care what you feel or what you think about Lana, being that she's associated with Rusev and Rusev Day. Lana is not a professional wrestler. Lana is a valet. Lana is a manager for Rusev. You look at Lana in a WWE ring, it goes against everything that WWE has been trying to push with the women's de-evolution. Because that's exactly what it is when you see someone like Lana in the ring qualifying for Money in the Bank. I'm absolutely speechless as to how anybody can be legitimately excited for Lana being in that type of match. She's the type of superstar in that division that brings that match down. She looks fragile. Why would you put her in such an environment compared to a Charlotte, a Becky, a Naomi, Alexa, Ember? It's ridiculous to even fathom. And on top of that, she beat Billie Kay, of all people. I'm not saying Billie Kay is breaking massive ground on SmackDown Live. I'm not even saying Billie Kay did anything important in NXT. But at least they were portrayed as something serious in the women's division. On SmackDown Live, I don't want to throw the term around because people use it so loosely and people don't use it when it's appropriate. I feel right now this is appropriate. Peyton Royce and Billie Kay are being buried for whatever reason on SmackDown Live, and I don't know why. It's not like they have anything going in the division right now. Why they wouldn't push two people like Billie Kay and Peyton Royce is ridiculous. You know, the Iconics were very popular in NXT. As soon as they hit SmackDown Live, it was like, oh, look, two more young NXT talents. Let's bring them up and let's embarrass them. I don't understand why or how this happened. It's cringe. It's downright cringe. She doesn't deserve it. She's not believable in the role. She looks absolutely ridiculous. And you look at Lana and, like I said, it goes against everything that this evolution is. Lana would have fit perfectly in the Divas division. Stephanie McMahon said it herself. You will be known as WWE superstars. They're getting rid of the diva term. Lana is a total diva. You don't see Charlotte on that show. You don't see Ember Moon or Ruby Riott or Sasha Banks or Becky Lynch on that show. Because they're not divas. They're wrestlers. Meanwhile, you see Lana and you see Nia Jax and you see Renee Young and you see Alexa Bliss. At this point, my stock in Alexa Bliss has sunk so low, I don't even care about Alexa Bliss anymore. Those are divas. Naomi is the only one out of those that could actually wrestle. Naomi is the only one of those women on that show that could actually wrestle. Lana does not belong in Money in the Bank. There's nothing about Lana. And don't tell me because of your fandom. Don't tell me because she's your favorite on Total Divas or, you enjoy looking at her because she's hot and she's good looking. Cut the shit. We're talking about Money in the Bank. Lana has done absolutely nothing to warrant getting her in that match and potentially winning a Money in the Bank. Could you picture Lana as SmackDown Live Women's Champion? Oh, I forgot to add Carmella's on that show too. Case in point. The trash of the division is on that show. Meanwhile, the actual wrestling is not. But WWE pushes the initiative of Total Divas, and they give their championships and spotlight to Total Divas for whatever reason. It's disgusting. The WWE's women's evolution is a crock of shit. It is bullshit. They may have gotten rid of the term diva, but what they continue to do ever since they retired that belt and that meaning is push divas. It's disgusting. They made a terrible choice. Billie Kay has done more in the ring. I'm not saying she is the greatest women's wrestler of all time. I'm not even saying she's a great women's wrestler. I much prefer Peyton Royce over Billie Kay. But Billie Kay not going over Lana? Now, they're just doing that for the simple fact that Rusev is in the men's Money in the Bank, and they're going to play off the fact of Rusev winning his match and Lana winning her match and being the first ever couple to win Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank. WWE thinks they're slick, but this was a terrible creative decision on their end. Awful. Absolutely awful. And the way she lost was just terrible. Let me talk about Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles. We all know, we all feel the same way that AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura and WWE handling this feud, the ball has been dropped. I think they've done a piss poor job. At this point, it's almost as if WWE is trolling the fans right now with the amount of non-finishes to both of these men's matches. Shinsuke Nakamura won a match in a very deceptive way, in a very old school way that I appreciated. Last week, we got him playing possum, and the Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby the Brain Heenan-isms were flowing through my head. Playing possum. Got involved with the referee. AJ had his back turned. Nakamura faked AJ kicking him in the balls. And when AJ turned around, Nakamura had been playing possum, and the match was over. Gave him a low blow of his own, and then a Kinshasa. I appreciated that. And I appreciate the fact that every time these two have been in the ring together, their matches have gotten a little bit better. Nakamura's heel turn, though it's been great, and I stand by this, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago on this very review, I feel like it is a bad time. This is terrible timing for Shinsuke Nakamura to turn heel, because WWE could have given him a world championship last year by him beating Jinder Mahal inside or at Hell in a Cell. And they didn't pull the trigger. They would have rather kept that disease known as Mahal as its champion. And then they had AJ take the title off him only a month later, right before Survivor Series. WWE could have done the same thing with Shinsuke Nakamura. At least at that point, he was over. He was hot as a babyface. People wanted to see him, and he would have had one reign as WWE champion. The roles would have just been reversed. Nakamura would have been the WWE champion. AJ would have won the Royal Rumble, and we would have gotten the match at WrestleMania anyway. And everything that we're seeing now would still be happening. Except for that one little change at the Royal Rumble. Roles would have been reversed. Nakamura would have been the champion going into WrestleMania. At least he would have had a reign from October to April under his belt. And then AJ could have taken the title off of Nakamura at WrestleMania, and Nakamura still could have turned heel in that moment at WrestleMania and betrayed AJ. It would have made a lot more sense, too, with him losing the championship. That's just the way I see it. And then we could have gotten match after match after match. Not so close together, But it could have been something that could have taken us through the summer until SummerSlam. The way WWE is doing it right now, I feel like it's rushed. I feel like they are kind of making a mockery out of it and a joke out of it. All these non-finishes, the low blows, the stop and starts, the do-overs. Doesn't really feel special. I feel like WWE took this dream match that everybody wanted to see and they're shoving it down our throats. Everywhere you look, Nakamura Styles, one-on-one. No finish. Let's do it over. Different stipulation. They take the stipulation and they abuse it. It's not really fun. And it insults our intelligence, to be perfectly honest with you. Last night, in this heel turn that is Nakamura, he has never sounded and looked better than he did last night. He looked, sounded, and felt like a legitimate heel in everything he did. There was barely, he cracked a smile here and there, and he cracked a joke here and there. But for 95% of this thing, he was heel. The bass in his voice, the attitude, the nonchalant, I don't give a fuck, I'm going to do what I want. The way he announced what type of match he wanted with AJ Styles, what he chose for a stipulation. Everything that Nakamura did last night resonated with me as, okay, this guy is 100% dastardly heel. And I absolutely love it. Whatever he did last night was Nakamura's best work as a heel on SmackDown Live. And the way that he announced the stipulation for this, I was watching it. I appreciated the way Nakamura portrayed himself in announcing the stipulation, but I would have went a little bit more of a simpler route. I would have Kinshasa'd him, and I would have had Nakamura take the WWE Championship, get in the ring, look down at AJ Styles laying on the outside of the ring after a Kinshasa, and said, AJ, I'm going to take this title at Money in the Bank, and you're going to be the last man standing. That's what I would have had Nakamura come out, do, and say. What they did have him come out, do, and say is 1, 2, counting all the way to 10. He Kinshasa'd AJ Styles on the outside, and he started counting up to 10. Now, I knew what type of match he was going to announce before he finished his 10 count. The announcers played it off as they didn't know what the fuck was going on. But it's going to be a last man standing match. Now, there's something in my mind. I am afraid WWE is going to open themselves up to continuing this non-finish. They're going to keep this rolling through the summer. Because WWE is this petty to do something like that. They have an easy out here. These two could beat the shit out of each other in Chicago at Money in the Bank, and both of them not make the 10 count. That would lead us to another match that they devise for them to openly ruin. What if both men don't make the 10 count? What's the next match that we get? What's the next match that we get? I think they're going to take this all the way to SummerSlam. I really do. I think they're going to take this all the way to SummerSlam, and I think WWE is going to continue to mock and troll the fans with this shit. That's the first thing in everybody's mind. Don't tell me I'm wrong. I know you were thinking it when the match was announced. What are they going to do? Both men are not going to make the 10 count. I hope that isn't the case, because I want to see new opponents for AJ Styles. And if Nakamura doesn't win the championship, where does he go? Legitimately, with the amount of resources and the amount of effort WWE has put into making Nakamura heel and portraying him as a heel, if he doesn't win the championship now, was it all wasted? Was it all for naught? Where does he go? Who does he get into a feud with? He's a main event guy. Having him not in the main event scene is a little bizarre to me. And if it doesn't happen, I feel like this entire heel run is exactly what I stated it was just a few minutes ago. Bad timing. WWE missed the boat on Nakamura to at least make him a champion. Once. That should have happened back in October. I would have never put that title on Jinder Mahal. Again, another instance in which Mahal's title reign just was felt all throughout this company in the most negative way. And it did nothing for whatever they wanted in India. We didn't hear about it ever again. So why did it really happen? I hope I'm wrong on this. Because Nakamura right now, he's much more enjoyable than what we seen when he first debuted on SmackDown Live. But where does he go? If AJ wins this match, where does he go? AJ has plenty to do on SmackDown Live. Almas, Joe, Bryan, Orton, who's hurt right now. But AJ has more to do than Nakamura does. Keep that in mind. It's going to be a very, very difficult booking decision for WWE. Going to be very interested to see what they do as far as the WWE Championship goes. We've finally seen tag team wrestling on SmackDown Live. Legitimate tag team wrestling between tag teams. Usos and The Club. Gallows and Anderson. I don't know why WWE wants to move away from tag team wrestling. And the reason why I say this is A, because I love tag team wrestling, and the interaction and the intensity that all four guys brought in that promo segment before that match got started, I wanted to see more of. I legitimately stopped whatever I was doing and I listened to all four men on the microphone. Though it was for a minute and a half, the interaction between all four guys was great. I fucking hate that WWE has no storylines for their tag teams. Because the intensity shown in that made me want to see more. And I don't appreciate the fact that tag teams don't fight and they don't wrestle on a weekly basis for them to be put in a number one contenders match. You know the old school guy in me came out and thought, well, why is the club getting a number one contenders match for the tag team championships when they really haven't done anything to deserve one? It's as if WWE doesn't care and they book on the fly. We talk about them not having any planning. Perfect example. Why aren't there teams? There's plenty of teams on SmackDown Live. Why aren't there teams wrestling to be put in a position to be in that type of match last night? Why do you just pick two random teams? That is unfair and it insults my intelligence. Because I know the club has done nothing to be in that situation. Do I want to see them in that situation? Do I want to see them booked better? Of course I do. They're a talented team. But to just willy-nilly just pluck a team, okay, we're going to do a number one contenders match because we need a tag team championship match at Money in the Bank. Just because you need a match at Money in the Bank, you have to give us lazy booking? Don't like it at all, man. The tag team division and both of these teams deserve so much better. And what we got, it was a short match. Barely lasted 5 minutes. But I doubt anyone watching that show last night is going to tell me, nah, I don't want to see more of that. The intensity shown in that match and the physicality between those two teams, I wanted to see for another 15 minutes. And when the club won, people were legitimately excited because what they got in the ring was to their liking. There were four guys hungry to make a statement. And that I felt by watching all four guys in the ring. Tag team wrestling needs to be a staple on both shows. It can't be mishandled. It can't be thrown away to the wayside. It can't be forgotten. There's too many talented men on that roster in the tag team division to just be, you know what, we're just going to say fuck it, and we're not going to really care and put much thought into the tag team division because it doesn't make us money, according to the rumors. Or, it's not really a big aspect of our television or our business. So why the fuck do you have 2 championships? Why do you have 2 separate championships? Why do you have all these teams, all these guys just floating around, not doing anything? Tell me you can't book the Usos properly? You mean to tell me you look at the Usos when they walk and when they walk down the aisle and make their entrance and speak, you have nothing for the Usos, that you wouldn't push them? They don't come off as superstars to you? They haven't done enough to prove to you in that ring that they need to be featured? You bring in the Club from New Japan and waste them away for 2.5 years? That's what you do? Because they're not WWE guys? Well, Gallows was. Anderson wasn't. Don't give me that shit. Both of these teams could put on a great feud if they wanted. The storyline's there. They said it last night. This ain't Japan, Oos. This ain't Japan. That one line right there spoke to me and everybody else. You think you could come over from Japan and come on to our show? You think you could be #1 contenders because you're from New Japan? This is the Uso Penitentiary. There's a foundation right there. Who's the best? You could have what you had with the New Day in the Club and the Usos, if you wanted. No, but WWE's not going to do that. WWE's not going to do that. And are you going to care? Even though last night, the crowd seemed to be excited for when the Club won. Are you genuinely going to care when the Club and the Bludgeon Brothers go at it at Money in the Bank? Is WWE going to put enough care into that match to make it stand out as a great tag team match? Or are we going to get another 5-minute affair like we've seen at WrestleMania with the New Day, the Usos, and the Bludgeon Brothers? Because if that match didn't go 5 minutes, what the fuck you think they're going to do here at Money in the Bank? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. WWE's given me no reason to believe that they're going to take care of whatever they got going on with the tag team division at Money in the Bank. It's a damn shame. It really is a damn shame. You got all these talented guys and you can't book a decent storyline between any of these tag teams. Usos have been off television. The Club has been dead ever since coming over to SmackDown Live. The Bar is fucking around with the New Day. You got the New Day throwing fucking pancakes all over the place. The New Day's in Money in the Bank. They couldn't give a shit about the tag team titles. Come on, man. Seriously. Get with the fucking program. We want to see tag team wrestling. Other than that, that was pretty much the main things from SmackDown Live. I do want to touch on Almas, though, before we get the hell out of here. And then I'll go over the results real quick, and we'll get the hell out of here. My voice is not really all that right now because of the concert last night that I went to and the commentating that I did on Friday for House of Glory. So I'm kind of, I have a voice, but it's not as strong as it could be, just between those two things. But I do want to touch on Almas. WWE is positioning Almas as, I hope, a big deal. They got Zelina Vega coming out, cutting promos, video packages, telling him, he's here and we're going to take over. Almas is going to take over. But this is 2 weeks in a row now that they put him with a local enhancement talent. How much longer do we have to see Almas go up against these no-name guys? This does not need to go past next week. If you want to do it again for one more week, fine. But Almas doesn't need practice. He doesn't need a squash match against unnamed indie talents or enhancement talents. This is Andrade Cien Almas. There's no reason why I'm going to sit here at home and watch him beat up these fucking guys when he was NXT champion and having battles with Drew McIntyre and Johnny Gargano. Bringing Gargano to the best match that I think I've ever seen in WWE. And most certainly the best match of 2018. Now you're putting him on SmackDown Live, and you don't think that me watching that he can't duplicate that with any one of these fucking guys on there? I understand there's a process. I understand there's a process of him working his way up, but he was fucking NXT champion. He was NXT champion in match of the year just a couple of months ago. The guy doesn't need to go up against unnamed enhancement talents. Put him in the ring with somebody credible. Put him in the ring with a main roster guy and have him do that. Or at least bring some competitive aspect to the match. I don't want to see him squash guys. I want to see the fucking guy wrestle. This does not need to go on past 3 weeks. If you want to do it next week, again, fine. After that, a little bit overkill. This is not a Braun Strowman situation where you're going to put one guy, two guys, three guys, four guys, five guys at a time in front of him. It worked for Strowman. Doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else. It works for Strowman because he's a fucking attraction. He's a circus freak. Almas is a wrestler. We know what the guy can do. And don't tell me the majority of the audience don't know who Almas is. I want to see the guy wrestle. There's no reason for a guy like that, who was in the best match of the fucking year, to be up against some local enhancement guy. Come on. Get with the program. Move this guy along quicker than you would usually do a guy. We don't need to see this anymore. Put him in there with a Ty Dillinger. Put him in there with, I don't know, a Zack Ryder. Come on, man. It's just downright fucking embarrassing for Almas to be in there. It's like a waste of his time. It's a waste of my time. At least Ryder would have given him some competition. Or Ty Dillinger would have given him some competition. Sucks that I'm even mentioning Ty Dillinger as an enhancement guy. That's exactly what he is. Hasn't been portrayed any other way. What else am I supposed to think about him? Anyway, man, that was your SmackDown Live last night. Show opened up with The Miz calling out the New Day. He wanted to pretty much get the answer out of the New Day. Who's going to be the one member of the New Day to be in Money in the Bank? Because he wants to know. He wants the scoop for WWE. He wants to know more so for himself, because the New Day even said it themselves that they have the advantage. Nobody knows which member of the New Day it's going to be. So they have, or they feel at least, they have the upper hand here. So the Miz tried to get the answer out of them. It didn't happen. Miz went on about, all their accolades, but then mentioned that none of them have ever won Money in the Bank. He mentioned Kofi Kingston was in 6 Money in the Banks, and he never won one. Meanwhile, he's won one, and he's main evented WrestleMania. He's cashed it in. He's got all these accolades, and he's going to do it again. And he wants to know which member of the New Day is going to be the one chosen. So when they didn't tell him, The Miz came out and said, I can beat any one of you on any given day. So the New Day kind of played up the fact that, okay, it's going to be Big E. It's going to be Big E. So The Miz was happy about them finally choosing someone for Money in the Bank. But when they chose Big E, the New Day were like, whoa. We didn't choose anybody for Money in the Bank. You just said that you could beat any one of us on any given day. So we choose Big E. So let me see if you could beat Big E. Put your money where your mouth is. So The Miz said, pretty much, you're not going to give me the answer that I want. I'm not going to give you what you want. So The Miz walked out. Segment was over. Nice interaction. Much better than what we got on Monday with Monday Night Raw. Nice interaction between all four. At least we didn't get Roman Reigns for a full fucking hour. So The Miz goes backstage. Paige immediately confronts him and said, we didn't get the answer out of those guys, but you did say you could beat one member of the New Day. So Big E is stepping up, and we're going to have that match right now. So The Miz versus Big E, was a good match. The Miz has really impressed me. But There was one instance in this match that kind of skeeved me out. The New Day stopped Big E on the outside, and they sat him in a stool as if they were prepping him for a boxing match. They put the petroleum jelly on his face, and then Big E tilted his head back, and Kofi took a bottle of fucking maple syrup and started pouring that shit down his throat. Kind of skeeved me out a little bit, man. Not really what I envisioned. I enjoy my breakfast. I enjoy a nice Belgian waffle. You know? Watching that, I don't want to have breakfast for the next couple of weeks. That was nasty. I'm sorry. That was nasty. But in the end here, The Miz wins. We get Sheamus and Cesaro running out. They take out Xavier Woods on the outside. Kofi leaps off the steel steps, takes Cesaro down. Sheamus drops Kofi with a bro kick. So The Miz, you know, his streak of winning on his own came to an end this week. Miz takes advantage of all this outside distraction, takes advantage of Big E, and hits a skull-crushing finale for the pin. So The Miz was the recipient of the assist of Sheamus and Cesaro. So we got next week, Sheamus, Cesaro, and The Miz versus The New Day in a 6-man tag. Such creativity from SmackDown, uncreative. Lana beat Billie Kay. Very quick here, downright squash. What was it? A face buster here by Lana. It was because of Aiden English on the outside. Aiden English on the outside takes out a huge picket sign that says Lana Day. And he's getting the crowd in a Lana Day chant with the sign. He's waving the sign around. Peyton Royce comes over and starts yelling at him. Smacks him in the face. Billie Kay comes over. And he got both Iconics just yelling at Aiden English. So Lana comes over, and she takes advantage of this distraction. Peyton Royce goes flying. She throws Billie Kay back in the ring, and all of a sudden the match is over. Facebuster, Lana wins, and that's it. She earned the Money in the Bank ladder match spot in this qualifier match. I stand behind what I said earlier. Lana does not belong in Money in the Bank. It's downright embarrassing. She's not a pro wrestler. She doesn't look like a pro wrestler. She doesn't act like a pro wrestler. She doesn't move like a pro wrestler. The women's divisions on both shows are fucking awful. They are downright awful. How anybody could agree with this decision is ridiculous. They don't know any better. They really don't know any better. Almas beat Enhancement Talent, beat the shit out of him. There was one spot here where he threw a back elbow. I don't know if it was a mistime or what, but this kid, they didn't even give him a name. He got fucking knocked out. He got knocked out. Almas did everything that you would expect Almas to do. Brutal. The Meteora knees in the corner. He did that twice. And then the Hammerlock DDT for the win. Planted his head right into the mat. Almas destroyed this kid. You talk about earning your payday. This kid earned his fucking payday on SmackDown Live. Almost with the easy win here. We had a number one contenders match for the tag team titles. Usos versus Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. This was hot and heavy, man. This was action-packed for the little time that they got. I'd love to see more from these two teams. I really would. Jimmy ends up dropping Gallows with a super kick. Jay leaps off the top with a superfly splash. Gallows kicks out at 2. Anderson sent back down to the floor. Usos climb opposite corners. They're going for a double superfly splash on Gallows, but Anderson takes Jimmy out off the top. Gallows goes at it with Jay. Super kicks him. Anderson tags in quick. Magic killer on Jay while Jimmy's on the outside. And they pin the Usos for a number one contenders match here. They get the title shot at the Bludgeon Brothers at Money in the Bank. I definitely want to see more from these two teams, and I wish that there would be more stories in the tag team division. Naomi versus Sonya Deville for a qualifier match. All is right in the world here. If Sonya Deville beat Naomi, I would have been really, really questioning the last few entries into the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Naomi wins here. They go at it towards the end here. Naomi counters a kick by Deville and performs a roll-up out of nowhere to win this match and advance to Money in the Bank. Nothing special here. very, very basic. Couple of minutes in the ring. Naomi wins. I'm glad Naomi's in the Money in the Bank qualifier match. Her mixed with a ladder match. You could see some pretty cool stuff. So hopefully we see Naomi rock it out at Money in the Bank. Daniel Bryan versus Jeff Hardy. This was a very, very good match. I could have watched these guys go another 10, 15 minutes easy. There was a lot of action here. There was some chain wrestling in the beginning, kind of feeling each other out, being that it was a first time ever. And then the pace started to pick up. They had to pack a lot into the 10 minutes that they were given. And that's exactly what they did. Bryan blocked a twist of fate and kicks Hardy's knee. Now, Hardy's knee's been an issue. I don't know if he's legitimately hurt, but Hardy's knee has been an issue. They made the knee a factor in this match. And Daniel Bryan, being the Bret Hart-esque wrestler that he is, he sees something, he pinpoints it, he attacks. Takes out Hardy's knee. Bryan with some yes kicks on Jeff's knees. Hardy with a twist of fate out of nowhere. Hardy goes back to the top, goes for a swanton bomb. Bryan gets the knees up, and Bryan crashes hard. Bryan with a big kick, another 2 count, or Hardy crashes hard, rather. That was a very brutal swanton bomb with the knees up. Looked like Hardy really got hurt on that one. Bryan with a big kick, 2 count. After that swanton bomb miscue, we had a back and forth. They go for a few roll-ups, back and forth. They both get 2 counts on one another. Bryan with some stiff uppercuts, tries for a backslide, old school backslide. Bryan blocks a twist of fate, hits this dragon screw leg whip, which looked brutal. It's an old school move there, man. That dragon screw leg whip, taking Hardy down to the mat. He applies this leg submission. I don't know what he's calling it, but it looks like they're going with this instead of the yes lock as of late. And Hardy taps out. Hardy taps out clean to Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan wins here to advance to Samoa Joe, and the winner of that match goes on to Money in the Bank. After the match, Joe was on commentary, by the way. Can we all be in agreement and say I would rather Joe replace Byron Saxton? Joe is a great fucking, third addition to the SmackDown Live commentary team. He was adding more than Byron Saxton on any given week. And he's just there scouting his opponents. I loved it. After the match, Joe immediately got up, took a microphone. Bryan starts doing the yes chant. And I love Joe. I love the fucking small attention to detail that they put into Joe's character. Bryan is celebrating. And Joe gets up and says, Bryan. He starts yelling Bryan. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. I don't see what you're celebrating here. All you did was win an opportunity to face me. I love it. It was so great. Joe stares Bryan down and says, I failed to see why you're celebrating, because you have to face me next week. And then that's all he said. He drops the microphone. He walks out to his music. And Daniel Bryan's still in the ring doing the yes chant. And then Renee Young is backstage as Joe walks through the curtain. And she asks why he's so confident about next week with those strong words to Daniel Bryan. Joe dismisses the strong words talk and says next week Bryan will go to sleep. He mocks the yes chant and then walks off. He's like, will Daniel Bryan go to sleep next week? Yes, yes, yes. In Joe's much more intimidating voice. Very good stuff, man. Decent episode of SmackDown Live. I am questioning some things as far as certain guys go, but definitely got me interested in next week, especially for that Bryan-Joe match. I wouldn't have done it so soon, but if they do exactly what I said in the beginning of this show, then I think we'll be fine. So it's going to be interesting. The unpredictability is there. I'm looking forward to it, man. SmackDown Live putting on decent shows, a decent string of shows. They're not great by any stretch of the imagination, but at least they have a winning streak on their hands, unlike that fucking garbage that we're seeing on Monday Night Raw. I'm getting out of here, man. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to rest my voice. I'm going to do some stuff around the house. NXT tonight should be another good show. We'll talk about it as always. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me. Hit that thumbs up. Follow me on social media at JDFROMNY206 on Twitter, and hit that subscribe button down below for all videos and all notifications, man. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys tonight for NXT. NXT. I'll talk to you later.